This section takes a look at the three options available for managers to finance the company's operations. The three options are issuing stock, using retained earnings, or issuing bonds. Of the three methods, the best method is to finance operations through retained earnings. There's no debt to go into, there's no dilution of ownership. Retained earnings represent amounts earned and kept by the corporation, and that is the best way to finance your operations. The only disadvantage of using retained earnings to finance your operations is that the amount of expansion is limited to the amount of your retained earnings. Now let's assume that a company issues stock to finance their operations. What are the pros and cons of issuing stock? The biggest advantage of issuing stock is that stock does not have to be paid back, and stock does not have any interest obligations. We have to pay dividends, but dividends are optional. So issuing stock is a less risky method of financing operations as compared to issuing bonds. The disadvantage of issuing stock is that your earnings per share reduces. Remember, earnings per share is calculated by dividing net income by the number of shares of common stock. If you increase the number of common stock, then your earnings per share decreases. Another disadvantage of issuing stock is that the ownership portion of a shareholder is diluted. Issuing new stock increases the number of shareholders, therefore the percentage ownership of existing shareholders are less. That is what we call dilution of ownership. Finally, let's take a look at the effect of issuing bonds to finance operations. When you issue bonds, your debt increases, which means that you have to pay interest on that debt. Now, your business has to make enough profits and cash to pay off interest, as well as to pay back the bonds at the end of the term of the bond. This is much more riskier than issuing stock. The benefit of issuing bonds is that ownership is not diluted and your earnings per share does not decrease to the same extent as if you issued stock.